The Pennsylvania 500, presented by Pep Boys on TNT, is brought to you by Pep Boys. Help for your car is just a Pep Boys away. Pep Boys, we're car people. By AT&T Wireless, welcome to M-Life. By the United States Army, an army of one. And by Best Buy. For the latest technology, turn on the fun at Best Buy.
You know, if we put some darker glasses and a little mustache on Benny, he and Manny would be a pretty good split, don't you think? Pretty good match?
I think he would. Try that next week, BP.
I don't know why that thought struck me while I was looking at the bobbleheads. Speaking of Benny, how about a little Thunder Motion?
This is a very strange racetrack, a triangular-shaped racetrack. Let's go inside our EA Sports NASCAR Thunder 2003 and a little bit closer look at what we might see today. When the cars go down in turn one, as Wally said in his lap, you want to be down next to the white line, but we have seen over the last 2 or 3 years, you can run the outside line. As a matter of fact, you can't even pass out there. Now, what I think is the toughest corner on the racetrack is a tunnel corner. You're driving into it about 200 miles per hour straight towards that wall, and you just hope that it turns. And here you need to be down next to that white line. As you come off this flat corner, turn 3, this is not the place to be. You've got to be on the bottom of the racetrack because how you come off there really depends on how you're going down this 4,400 long straightaway.
Boy, Wally, if you were driving that thing, you had your hands full.
I was going to say, you did a good lap there, BP.
65!
Bill Elliott was the fast qualifier for a second straight week on Friday. He wins the Bud Pole Award from Budweiser, the official beer of NASCAR, proud sponsor of the award given to the fastest qualifier at each Winston Cup race, awarding more than $7 million since 1979 as title sponsor of NASCAR's Pole Award program is Anheuser-Busch. And now, the Walmart starting grid for today's Pennsylvania 500. Alongside Bill Elliott on the front row, Ricky Rudd came within 6 laps of winning here in June. Flat tire foiled him that day.
And back in row 2, Michael Waltrip and Jeremy Mayfield, teammate for Bill Elliott.
John Andretti, great qualifying run for Richard Petty. He starts in row 3 with Johnny Benson. Back says the ribs are fine after his crash at Daytona.
And back in row 4 is the bestest rookie row, Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Newman. So they expect both these cars to challenge.
Rusty Wallace, hope his racing's better than his golfing. He's going to go with row 5 with Tony Stewart alongside. Dale Earnhardt Jr. in row 6 with Jerry Nadeau going to drive that 44 car for the Petties the rest of this season.
Sterling Marlin, Steve Parker, points leader Sterling Marlin inside of row 7.
Dale Jarrett won here in June 6 weeks ago. He starts in row number 8 with Ricky Craven in the Tide Ride.
And back in row 9, we find on the inside Mark Martin starting 17th. Let's talk to Mark. Mark Martin, Benny Parsons, TNT. You got me?
Hey, Benny.
Okay, how's the racetrack looking?
Racetrack's ready to go here. They're trying to dry up some damp spots on the front stretch, but that wouldn't bother us any. We're ready to go here. The track looks good.
Well, okay. Is that number 6 car ready to go?
It was good yesterday. But, you know, every day's a new day. We'll have to wait and see how it goes today.
What are your thoughts as you drive down in turn 1 on the racetrack? Had some rain on it.
I hadn't seen a drop out here. Track looks good.
Well, good luck to you, Mark.
Thanks.
Mark Martin chasing that championship. Going to take the number 6 car to the green flag from the 17th position today. Here are the rest of the starters in the Pennsylvania 500. Elliott Sadler back there pretty deep in the field. 32nd spot, the Burton brothers in row 17.
What did Weber say, that no one has ever won this race past 27th starting spot or something?
That's right. How about Bobby Labonte, defending winner of this race? Provisional, and he's even going to drop farther back than that because they changed engines after their problems in qualifying, so he's got to go to the very back of the field. Mike Skinner does as well.
Gary Cope, Kurt Shumadine, who crashed on his qualifying lap on Friday, and Morgan Shepherd. I saw Morgan on pit road a couple of laps ago. Hopefully everything is okay.
And so there they are, the 43 who will start. Only one failed to qualify. Carl Long, unsuccessful in trying to make the field for the Pennsylvania 500. Let's get some stories from pit road as we get set for what should be the final planned pace lap. Dave Burns, how about it?
Alan, 2 weeks ago at Chicagoland, Dale Earnhardt Jr. tried to set up that he called radical. Here last year, he finished second, so I asked his crew chief, Tony Uri, if they went radical or if they went to last year's notes. Radical made the car bottom out in turn 1. They only applied a little bit of that wild setup for Junior's ride today. To Marty Snyder.
Well, Dave, it's been a very good weekend so far for Matt Kenseth. 5 laps and happy hour yesterday, 22 all day on Saturday. I asked Robbie Reiser, any changes this morning? He said, no. And that's the first time they've done that all year long. That should tell you how good the 17 car should be today. Matt Yoakum.
Marty, back in June, point leader Sterling Marlin entered Pocono with a 136-point lead. Now, after 6 weeks, it's a mere 55. He knows that this midsummer stretch is where Dale Jarrett and Ricky Rudd lost the championship 1 year ago. He has to go out on the offensive, especially when you consider his record at the next 5 racetracks. He has a combined 1 victory. Bill?
Thank you, Matt. Qualifying here on Friday provided an emotional lift for a couple of teams. First, there was John Andretti. A week ago at New Hampshire, he was fast in practice but did not deliver in qualifying. Here on Friday at Pocono, fast in practice and delivered in qualifying. He starts 5th, trying to resurge the Petty effort. He has just 1 top 10 so far this season. Next to him, Johnny Benson, making his comeback after that hard crash in the Pepsi 400 in Daytona on the 4th of July weekend. This is just the 15th start for Benson. He broke ribs at Richmond, came back at Pocono. He broke ribs at Daytona, comes back at Pocono. Today, he starts 6th, looking for his first career win. Alan?
Bill, so many of the headlines here in Pennsylvania this week have been focused on Somerset, a couple hundred miles away from here, where those 9 miners were trapped underground for 3, 4, 5 days. What was it, about 3 days they were trapped down in there? Little 4-foot by 18-foot space.
Longer than I want to think about, I'll tell you that. You wondered, could they get those guys out? But thank God they did.
Yeah, diligent rescue effort, and they all came out last night. And I got a chuckle. I didn't see the news this morning, but one of our people were telling me that one of the guys came out and said, thank goodness we're out in time to see the race. I mean, we were so glad that they got out okay, and they were on the thoughts of a lot of people around here in Pennsylvania. In fact, Jimmy Spencer, a Pennsylvania native, has got a sign in his Target car that says, glad you're home, guys. So a great ending to that story, and we hope they're all doing very well.
Joy, Jimmy Spencer, that 41 car, wants to run better at this racetrack and any track on the circuit because he grew up about 70, 80 miles from here, but he seems to have, his luck seems to be so bad at Pocono.
He has none here. But he'll try it again. We are set to go. The rain is held off. The crowd is on its feet. 200 laps, 500 miles here at Pocono. Let's get him started.
Green.
Here they go. 3, 4 wide, just like you said, Walt.
Yep, now so you're going to get through. You want to be down on the bottom, I think, going through one on the first lap. You certainly don't want to make it 3 wide, but everybody looks like they're behave themselves so far anyway, but you still got to get through 2 and 3 on the first lap.
Ricky Rudd gets the jump. He's the early leader. Oh, trouble! Steve Park is off into the infield. Another car involved. Over on his lid, it's Parkindale Jr. Terrible crash.
Man, Steve Park's car just turned dead left when he came off turn 2. Junior's running to see his teammate and see if he's okay.
And getting off into that wet grass wasn't going to do anything to slow those cars down. Caution is out. Ricky Rudd will lead the field back to the yellow. You can see Park moving inside the car, looking through the back glass. He's trying to get himself unwrapped around the roll bars to get out.
Yeah, he's definitely moving in there. That's a great sign.
The car hit that inside guardrail, which is a guardrail instead of a wall. And Rusty Wallace got a piece of it.
And we saw Rusty make it 3 wide going in turn 1, but as he entered turn 1, it looks like it slowed down and everything was under control.
Boy, you see that guardrail? They have flattened that guardrail inside that straightaway.
But once again, they talk about safer walls, and NASCAR and some folks at the University of Nebraska are working on making a softer wall, a safer wall. And what they're talking about is a wall like that that gives on impact rather than just sits there and makes the car and driver absorb all the energy.
Safety workers still there around the number 1 car. Of course, Steve has suffered 2 serious injuries back in March of '98 when he had that terrible crash at Atlanta that broke his leg and left him out for months, and then the crash at Darlington last Labor Day weekend in the Busch Series car, that strange crash when the steering wheel, it's suspected, came off in Steve's hands.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. still there.
And it's real easy, especially on the first lap coming out of 1. You know, you got cars 2 and 3 abreast, and if you slide up the racetrack, we talked about earlier,
There's
Benny.
Steve coming out of there.
There he is.
There we go.
Good sign.
That's what we wanted to see.
Anyways, what happens is you slide up the racetrack, and you can hit somebody in their left rear as you slide up the racetrack with your right front. And that's almost what it looked like. That one car just turned dead sideways.
Well, what a great shot that is. Teammates walking away from a crash like that, arm in arm.
Wally, you said just seconds before that they got through turn 1, but they had to get through turns 2 and 3. Didn't think they'd have problems on the straightaway, though.
Well, but like I said, you come out of turn 1, and if you slide up the racetrack, especially as green as it is, you never know what's going to happen.
All right, now that we know the drivers are okay, let's see if we can figure out what happened to cause this mess.
We see the Jimmy Johnson car, and there's Rusty Wallace. You see Park trying to squeeze up the outside.
I see he was trying to go on the outside of Rusty. Rusty moves up, they make contact, and Junior gets under the 1 car and just kind of bulldozed him into the wall and over.
Yeah, that's what actually turned him even more sideways. But I'll tell you what, that guardrail did the job.
Oh, it did. It's great
Took
job.
a lot of that absorbed a lot of impact right there.
What's a yellow car back there? Just turn left.
And when you hit wet grass, it feels like you pick up 200 mile an hour.
But you can see how that barrier gave way when
Absolutely.
that car got into it.
That barrier absorbed a lot of energy, and I'll tell you what, that nice to see happen, because if that were a concrete wall, he would have taken a much harder hit.
One more shot. Rusty's right in the middle of the racetrack. Steve Park's going down the outside, but Rusty decides to come up to the outside line, not realizing that Steve was there. They made contact, and the ride is on.
Look at that barrier give. Thank goodness.
But again, that's one reason that Steve was able to walk away arm in arm with Dale Earnhardt Jr. because of that wall that did give.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
And you know, the spotters on the roof here at Pocono are a long way away from where Rusty Wallace and Steve Park were racing over there. And it could be hard for that spotter to call Rusty clear. You know, maybe he did call Rusty clear. It's hard to, you know, but it's a difficult angle and a long way away from here at the start-finish line.
Yeah, that's an extremely tough call. You're right, Alan. This place, you have to look a mile away to see what's going on. So a lot of the driver has to really has to pay attention out there.
Under caution early, a savage crash involving Steve Park. Thankfully, both drivers, he and Dale Earnhardt Jr., are okay. Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania, the site of the Pennsylvania 500, presented by Pep Boys, under caution after a lap 1 crash between Steve Park and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Rusty Wallace also involved.
Let's take a look here at what happened. And it appears that you watch right here, Steve Park is trying to squeeze up the outside of Rusty. And Rusty just really moves up the racetrack thinking he's clear on Steve Park. And he drives right up into Steve Park, which turns him in the wall. Steve tries to turn left to avoid it and gets hooked by Dale Jr., which turns him even more sideways. And they both get hooked up and they hit this guardrail. And I mean, it's an amazing crash, but I'll tell you what, all the safety equipment did their job today.
And again, thank goodness for that soft wall on the inside, that steel barrier that gave so much when the 1 car got into it. And again, that's why the NASCAR and those folks are working on these walls. That's why the folks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway installed those barriers that give like that on impact.
And that's a scary crash to be watching from Earnhardt. It happens so fast when you're in a crash like that, and Earnhardt's sitting there looking at it, and that's why he ran over to the car to see how his teammate and Buddy was doing.
And knows he's basically pushing Park into that wall.
Right. And here you see Steve climbing out. And everybody's happy because of that.
What a great shot.
Yeah. Cleaning up the accident scene over between turns 1 and 2. Got a lot of work to do to repair that guardrail.